Go ahead, Mike, and start with the non-resident Rocky recommendation.
All right, so I'll talk about the recommendation, and then I'm going to try to provide some information on our current status of all of our Rocky herds. It all comes into play. So on the table, we have a recommendation to close the non-resident Rocky Mountain Bighorn season, the 92-50 North Hunt. And our initial rationale was 074, the contact herd. We feel we've got some middle-aged rams moving into older-age rams, but not quite there. You know, good 4- and 5-year-old numbers. But we had 2 tags last year, and we're really just not sure if we could have 2 again without waiting for those rams to get a little bit older. Probably one of the biggest reasons. And again, that would assume that we'd have a resident and a non-resident tag. Was at the same time we were developing our season recommendations, we were learning of the disease event going on in Unit 101 and 102, the East Humboldts and Rubens. I'll give you our current information on where we're at with known mortalities and unknown mortalities, our best guess. But there's going to be a lot of unknowns between now and September 1st. So we felt that we're not going to see the entire population die. In a real rare case that we see that here in Nevada. We're definitely going to see, a good number die, but we felt we had the ability to still have at least 1 tag in each of that Unit 101 and 102 to have that as an open season. But that, in order to have a non-resident tag, we really feel, following the 10% rule of total opportunity to the non-residents, we need to see that 7, 8, 9 tag quota to the residents in order to start giving that 1 tag to the non-residents. And we're not sure if we could have that many tags. We had 4 tags in the East Humboldts last year and 3 in the Rubies. So that was our rationale. Now, there's been a lot of discussion about options besides our recommendation, and I know we're going to hear from those people who have those, but one of the things that no matter what we do today, we want to make sure that we're informing our sportsmen, potential tag holders, potential tag applicants over the next few months, while they're debating on what to do or not to do in relation to the status of this herd. We're hoping to provide as much up-to-date information as we gain it of that die-off and any known ram mortalities that we can account for prior to the final tag application deadline. So I'm going to pull up a table. On the screen is, in chronological order on the left, dates from December 11th all the way down to yesterday of known mortalities that we've documented both in the East Humboldts and the Rubies by age class and gender. So to date, in the East Humboldts, we've got 3 mature rams and 4 2 to 3 year old rams that are dead. Total of 22 ewes and 4 lambs. In the rubies, this is known mortalities. 3 2 to 3 year old rams, 3 4 to 5 year old rams, and a mature ram, 6 plus, and 3 lambs. It is odd that we have not found any dead ewes yet, but I'm confident they're out there. We've got ewe carcasses somewhere out there. So that's what we know.
We can't see the totals. Could you give us the totals?
Yeah. Here, let me.
33 and 10.
So we got 33 total. 33 total in the East Humboldts and 10 in the rubies. We also found a single mountain goat dead of pneumonia in Lamoille Canyon. Have not found any more than 1 goat. We're monitoring the goats too. We're not going to forget about them. And I'm going to go ahead and Tony, you can help me here, but we know we're not going to see every one of these carcasses. And no matter if this disease event occurred now or a week before the season, we're always going to be a little bit blind of what was the full impact. But even if we had, let's say, we're only seeing 60% of the carcasses, we're missing another 40% above that, might push it up to 58 in the East Humboldts and 22 in the rubies, and working similar proportions of the current age structure of those rams that we found dead. We might see something like this, or excuse me, may see something like this for rams dead to date. This is today, through today. Maybe about 5 mature rams versus maybe just 2 or 3.
Mike, I have a question for you. Is this a problem because these sheep were stockpiled? When we had these deaths? Well, congested in a small area?
Like density?
Yes.
We don't think so. We really don't think so, but everything is on the table. As we talked about yesterday, and in Perry's presentation, a lot of variables, a lot of conditions out there that contributed. There's no silver bullet, there's no one reason, there's lots of reasons, and we're trying to learn of all the reasons and which ones had a stronger influence.
Was this a similar situation when those sheep died in '96?
There could be some similarities and there could be some differences between that die-off and this die-off for sure. It was just collecting the data.
Okay.
All right, so our current population model shows that we likely have, before this die-off, that we had 8 mature rams out there, and that we were going to gain probably another 8 or 9 that were in the 5-year range, that are going to be 6 years old, and based on our 50% of the mature rams 6 years or older, that's what we base the quote off of. We feel that today, if you were to make a decision on what's alive today, we still have well over probably 15 mature rams in East Humboldts. We don't know what's going to happen in the next week, in the next 2 months. Things could progress in terms of more mortalities. It might slow down. We don't know. But we've never had, other than Hayes Canyon, really a complete die-off. And even in the die-off in the East Humboldts, we had rams, in the rubies in 95, 96. We know we had rams that survived. They had scarred lungs, so we know that they don't all die, but right now, I think we certainly are concerned, but I still support our recommendation to have an open season in both units, and I still feel confident that we could issue a tag for both.
How many?
One tag, for each. Now, some of the things that we have available to us to try to accommodate these applicants and tag holders. One of the things, if we find before the winter ends that we had a lot more mortality than anyone would expect, we're trying to stay positive, but we do have the opportunity for tags for no reason to be turned back to us, as long as the hunter, the tag holder, tells us by July 15th. He'll receive his fees back and his bonus points, and he'll even get reinstated his bonus points from the current year because we assume that he was unsuccessful by turning that tag back in. So any tag applicant that would draw a tag, and after our investigations or even after their scouting, they feel uncomfortable that there's enough rams for them to hunt, they can turn the tag back in and be back in the system the following year or whenever to apply for a ram tag. So I guess that's about as much information I wanted to provide. I know a lot of people have a lot of thoughts, so I want to listen.
I've got a question, though, and Marie can answer. We had one guy last year went in the military. Now, is he obligated, are we obligated to give him a tag? So there's another tag out there floating
Right.
around.
Yeah.
And what area is that
I
in?
forgot to tell you that.
You didn't forget that, did you?
That up.
What area?
It's rubies.
Rubies.
It's 102.
102. So we're obligated to do that. Now, he can't turn that in and get another bonus point back, because that's only for 1 year, isn't it?
If he actually.
Would you step up, Maureen? I can't quite hear you.
Maureen, Nevada Department of Wildlife License Office. If he comes and actually obtains that tag this year, because he could defer for two years, and he's deferred for one now. And if he does come forward and obtains that tag, it's generated, he could fall under the rule to
He could
send it in, turn it in, yeah.
So we have to have a season because of this, is that right? We can't close it?
If we had a closed season and he's still out there, what would happen? I get the question.
I don't know. I haven't thought
So we
about it
have
in
to
that
have season
perspective.
We don't know yet.
I guess I would have to look at the regulations before I could answer that question.
We'd have the opportunity to use it next year, though, isn't that correct?
He
If you
could
didn't close
defer,
it?
we could
You
defer
could
it another
defer it till
year.
the next year, so he'd still be, the problem,
The commitment's been made
The commitment's been made.
by us.
I know.
So regardless of what, the deferment doesn't speak to the following seasons or not, if they're established. So the way I look at it is the commitment's made to that tag holder regardless of what we do today.
Yeah. The thing, we're darned if we do and darned if we don't. We have to make a decision, and it's, it could really blow up in a handbasket. We have and none there. Yes, we can give a tag back in, but then the connotation we're supporting a hunt. There's some sick animals out there, and I'm really concerned about the lambs. I mean, we don't have a lamb population right now, based on what you said yesterday, sustain the population, and then we're still going to have a hunt out there, and that concerns me a lot. Just because of there's no lambs out there, and yeah, we got some.
Well, that's the future. That's the future.
Yeah, that's the future, but, you know, we got some, if there's some rams out there and they're halfway alive, but, you know, there's some sick rams out there too, and I don't know, we're darned if we do and darned if we don't, and then if all of a sudden they become real healthy and there's a big population, we don't have any season in there, or only one, then they're gonna say, how come we didn't, you know, you're stockpiling them, you know, and then we get accused of that, so it's a real tough decision we have to make, but I get very concerned about having a hunt in a real sick population. There's a bunch of sickies out there, and, you know, we don't know it's gonna get worse, but usually, you know, like you're stretched, your resources are stretched, and like you said, you've probably seen a small percentage. You can't find all the dead ones because the carcasses are pretty well decayed, you know, up there, and if you factor it out, you're probably losing maybe a third of the Humboldts, you know, in the whole population. 60 sheep, that's just in a computer modeling, but when you lose that big of a population, I get real concerned about even keeping it open. I'd like to keep it open with one tag because we can do it. I mean, I'd like to do it, but then I'm still worried that maybe the prudent thing is to shut it down. I don't know. That's what we're going to talk with the commissioners here. Commissioner Capurro.
Well, you know, theoretically, then you could, instead of issuing that one tag, you could use the tag, you'd have the one serviceman tag that could hunt that area.
You could defer it, I think.
Or you could defer it or go ahead and let him hunt.
Yeah.
But that'd be the only tag that's out there. My other point, how many tags did we have last year?
We had 4 in the East Humboldts, 101, and 3 in the Rubies.
One other question. It's not on the issue here, but because you have one dead goat, do you have any feel for the potential for that? You don't have a huge huntable population up there for goats.
Well, it's sizable, but and there's no doubt that there is potential, although in the scientific world it's still a bit of unknown, the transmission of diseases between bighorn sheep and mountain goats. But you know, it has to occur. We just don't know how prevalent it is. And we did see both goats and bighorns during the last event die and succumb. But the goats are, they're distributed quite widely, as some of the bighorns are. So I guess we definitely are thinking that the die-off is going to hit the bighorn much more than the mountain goats, but we may see reduction in the mountain goats too. You know, we're up, as far as I know, unless the weather shut them down, they're over there right now looking at the situation, working today and tomorrow, both in the East Humboldts and the Rubies. And we're going to follow up before the quota setting for sure, and get as much information as possible from the air and the ground before April.
But we have to make a decision
On
today.
season,
That's
yeah.
that's
And the
the
only
problem.
other option I can throw out that has been discussed amongst the sportsmen, and we've discussed it amongst ourselves, is a further conservative approach would be to combine both units and say we're not sure if one is going to experience a more severe die-off than the other, and if you combine them, well, the bottom line is minimum of one tag, plus the deferred hunting opportunity.
Commissioner Kevin. Now and then I want to see if anybody in the public has any input on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any real heartburn about having a season after hearing Mike's report today. He told us that, and these most of my thoughts he portrayed. But if we inform our applicants, I mean, pretty much everybody knows that there's been a die-off up there. There's probably a few out there, but if we inform our applicants that there's a problem and a potential problem, they can turn the tag in, and if we have a season, we're going to keep hunters engaged. We're going to keep recruiting. I don't see a downfall to having a season with a tag or two. We may get to May and know enough that we can have more than one tag in these units. I mean, especially in the rubies, if you're looking at Lamoille, if you go all the way down to Rattlesnake, that population down there that I'm kind of familiar with, that's pretty isolated. We don't even know what's going on there. So there could be some pockets of sheep, and believe me, the sportsmen are going to go out and help the department, so to speak. There's going to be a lot of interest in looking for sheep this spring when the weather breaks.
Commissioner Carroll, what do you think
So
about
in May, by the time we have to set a quota, we're going to know a lot more.
what do you think about the idea of, we got one military, and then if we combine the areas and put one in the area, that means we have two. That leaves me,
I don't have any heartburn with that, and you might be able to put 2 tags in there when we
Three,
get more
6.
information.
so if they all die out in the rubies, at least the tag holder could go up north and hunt up in the Humboldts. Let's see if anyone from the public wants to comment on this.
And we had 2, Paul Dixon and Gil Yannick, 2 that had the number on. Did either one of you guys had the cards? Was Gil and Paul? I guess not.
Nope.
Okay, that was cards.
One thing I do want to point out, we surveyed the Rattlesnake complex along with several other adjacent canyons last week. We did see about a dozen animals, and that's where we're focusing our effort today, is to locate some of those animals, get our hands on them, see what condition they're at, see if they've been affected or not.
No, you're doing all you can, but what you do this weekend doesn't help us decision now, so I think we got all the data we need, and
I think we had 1 public comment.
if we
Oh,
did, come on
2.
up, because I brought it back to the commission.
Dennis Wilson, Nevada Bighorns Unlimited. I'll make this quick. Nevada Bighorns Unlimited would ask the commission to please consider and go with the recommendations from the Nevada Department of Wildlife in allowing tags as deemed appropriate for these areas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Here's the problem. Your support materials, we list the change in 0.
Steve Hemp, Humboldt County.
Can you hang on one second?
Sure.
That you don't have anything in the materials about changing.
This is a question for you.
2, which is where you're talking about now. So there's a problem with the notice. The notice is where it's wrong, but the support materials define what you're going to change today. So if you start changing the other things that are on the ragged edge and violated the meeting. What Mayor suggested is when you get this quota set, you just set a quota of 0 because of the disease.
So just don't put it on there.
Well, no, vote on 074. I think it's beyond the scope of the notice to go to 101.
We might not have to have any discussion. We got a little problem because, and we might not need all this discussion here, because of the legal notice. We have on 074, we have, that was out, but we don't have any support material for the rubies and the Humboldts. That's not in the support material, and so I don't think we've been advised we can't vote on it. So if we can't vote on it, we're not going to discuss it. And when we come up to the quotas, we can put a 0 quota on it.
Okay, this involves the non-resident. You're not going to vote on the
Yes,
non-resident?
we'll vote on 074 non-resident.
This involves the non-resident.
Okay, go ahead.
It's basically a question for Mike to begin with. If you don't have a non-resident hunt, can they purchase bonus points until a hunt becomes feasible for non-residents? Or do they keep,
They're in a holding pattern, so no, they can't, there has to be a season for them
Right.
in order for them to buy a bonus point, but there's not gonna be any eligibility concerns of them, being 2 years from the past tag application period. So it's like this year never happened to the non-residents if we were to close that season.
okay,
So 2010 just never occurred, and.
so the 2-year period will not exist
Right.
to lose their bonus points? Okay.
But I'd like to state that, and I don't have them in front of me, but if you give me a half hour, I could give you dozens of season recommendation changes that have been established by past commissions where we have no support material. But the agenda item on the announced meeting covers the topic. So our recommendations are only recommendations, and so many times we get the advisory boards, the commission to say, I want a split season, or I want a season date that goes from October to November instead of what the commission or the agency supported. We didn't have that. We didn't have that posted or provided in support material, that season date change. So I'm just wanting to point that out.
Now, that's point well taken. I'm going to turn it over to our legal advisor, Brian Stockton.
And after this was brought to my attention, I considered that because the notice is pretty broad. The standard is, does the notice give a fair notice to the public of what the commission's going to do? And I've debated back and forth. I understand your point. I understand the point that it's beyond the support materials. And when I was advising the chairman, I told him we're on the ragged edge. I could go either way. I'd rather play it safe, but if the commission feels this is important enough and the public feels it's had enough notice, then, I didn't tell them they couldn't vote, but I think we're on the ragged edge, so that's my advice.
I would like to, I think this is a critical issue, and I would like to do some, but and if we're right on the borderline, I think we ought to go for it. It's up to what the commission wants. Commissioner Cabrera.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we could actually vote then on to combine areas 101 and 102 without addressing the issue of the quota, right, at this point in time?
Quotas later.
Quotas
So-
later.
Later, yeah.
To combine, what, no, that's
2
not-
units.
2 units. and
This is
that's
the
what
odd
we're
year.
talking about.
Seasons are for 2 years. This is the odd.
The notice says seasons, PIW hunts, and bighorn sheep and depredation.
Seasons.
Seasons.
But that's not areas.
So that's not it.
I mean, you can do a combined season on the areas, but combining the areas.
Commissioner Cameron.
So,
Let's
right
either
now.
We're going to go forward or we're going to drop it.
I just have a question. Right now, the season would be open. Because the season was set previously, the
Right.
season would be open.
Same, yeah.
I
Let's
stand
move
by our
on. Let's move on.
That means we would, the season's open right now, and when we set the quotas, we'd have to put a quota 0 on it. Is that what you're saying, Director, Mayor? And not met in that way would be, but I understand. I agree with you 100%. I think we ought to do something today, but
What would happen to the applicants that I've already applied after that 0 quota?
they're going to be applying by
False advertisement.
April, and then they're applying for a season that has no quota.
We'll,
Something that doesn't
but we can
exist.
deal,
Visa probably.
we can deal with that
Sorry.
in May.
But
If there's a quota of 1.
We start,
That's your actual recommendation anyway, that the quota could be 1 in each unit, so.
Well, yeah, I mean, we still stand by our recommendation. I mean, I'm not saying that the sheep are going to prove me wrong and all die, but I still think we can support 2 tags in the rubies, because we know we've got a deferment. We have to accommodate 1 quota for the draw, 1 in the East Humboldts. I'm confident we can support that, but I could be proven wrong.
Well, what we can do is move on, and the season's set. We can't mess with the season according to our legal, and when we set the quotas, the minimum we can do is 1 and 1. And we can't combine the areas today because it wasn't on the agenda.
And I would ask, not that we know exactly the type of advisory or the form that it might be in, is to get your support for us to develop and maintain an active advisory on our website,
Yeah.
through the media.
Yeah, you'll need that.
Mr. Chairman, you still need a motion on
We need a motion.
074, is that correct?
Yes, we still need a motion.
I'd like to move that we adopt the hunt with information with regard to Hunt 9251 to close Unit 074.
We have a motion to accept
Move on.
the department's recommendations on Hunt 9251 and Unit 074. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions on it? Call for the vote. All for the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Let's go to PIW, and then we'll do that. When we set the quotas, we'll deal with that. And okay?
It's not fun to deal with something like that. So I appreciate everyone being understanding. PIW, we, and it gets down to the desert, the Nelson, Bighorn PIW. We are, again, trying to accommodate these special tags, but as discussed, right now, the bullseye's on the bears, and our recommendation, without reducing PIW tag numbers, were to try to manage where that harvest could occur. And we've got a lot of great units out there. It will cause a few people probably not to put in their extra $10, but I guess now you have to consider, this was our recommendation, but I just want to remind people, what you just did in item 12 was for 2011. The 2010 heritage tags are set. They can hunt anywhere they want. So right now, we're still looking at the potential of another 5 extra rams that could be harvested out of the bears if we don't modify the PIW, because the heritage we can't for 2010. So other than that, we haven't changed anything else for PIW. All the other species and their season dates and quotas are the same.
Do we have any public comment on that? Come on up.
Rick Smith, Washoe Cab. What our recommendation is we go back to what we were talking about, the heritage. We think the best solution for the overhunting of certain areas is, especially on the PIW, to leave the 3 tags intact, but to create 3 sections for the PIW. In other words, and we'd leave it to the department to determine that, but you say, section A, B, and C, and when you put in for check your PIW, you're going to choose either section A, B, or C. So as a hunter, if you draw that you are limited to these units that are in this section A, B, or C. And you could eliminate the bears out of any of those sections if you so choose, but you still allow 3 tags, and you spread the hunters out, and they're doing it by choice because they're picking the section that they want to hunt if they were successful. So we believe that is the best of all worlds.
Chairman,
Okay, thank you.
that-
Bureau.
that's fairly restrictive. Why not go the same route that we did with the others, and that's saying that they couldn't hunt they could have the rest of the state except those units that were hunted in last year. You're saying there's only 3 units that they could hunt in this year, is that right?
No, I'm not saying 3 units, I'm saying 3 sections. So you could have, let's just for the sake of this discussion, say you have 21 units, okay? 7 units are in Section A, 7 units are in Section B, and 7 units are in Section C. And that way, you're separating the hunters. By what we saw, the proposal that the department made, you could still have those 3 hunters all go into one other unit right now. And we have
Saying
the
This is for the 2011 hunt?
2010. This is 2010.
What we're doing today is for confession.
I only had, I think everybody didn't have any other special cards for this
That
particular item.
makes
so.
sense?
Come on up.
All right, one more.
Bill Miller, White Pine County. I know we're talking a lot about sheep and we're doing, and that's a good thing. But one thing that we're overlooking under PIW is last year this commission voted to have bull elk rut hunts in some of the units. And in past, our argument was, well, that's fine and dandy. We'll have 1 or 2 tags for the general public to hunt in the rut. Right now, we have a unit 131 early. I believe there was 2 tags given out that last year for a September hunt. So we have there are no landowner incentive tags in that unit, which is a good thing, but we have 3 PIW who are able to hunt in 131. That is a small herd. It has some good genetics in it. We want to make sure that herd grows genetically and also in population. And we don't want to make it a detriment to allow PIWs to hunt in these September rut hunts. And this is the point in time that we need to make those changes to these September hunts that do not allow PIW hunters access during these September hunts.
Thank you. What's the commission's prerogative on the PIW? Commissioner Rain.
Ready to make a motion to reduce PIW hunt quota in resident Nelson Bighorn sheep hunt 3,000 from 3 to 1, and restrict the harvest to the unit of harvest of the previous year. I noticed in the support material that states 253, and I believe that's simply there because that was the harvest of unit of harvest the previous year. But what we change is the unit of harvest in the previous year, so that will change as the unit changes.
Okay, just for clarification, sorry to butt in, but you said restricting it to the unit where it was harvested last year. You meant from.
From, accepting it
yeah.
from. Did I say two? Okay.
Except the units where the
Accepting.
harvest occurred in the previous year, right?
Accepting that unit. Correct.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second. Any discussion on that? And the motion was to restrict the,
And approve all the rest of the
and
quotas
approve
as
the rest of the
presented.
quotas, and except for the PIW resident Nelson from 3 to 1, and to restrict except the units where harvest occurred in the previous year. Okay, all for the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Let's go to the, we gotta do the indoctrination courses, right?
Yeah. We had one adjustment that we're recommending to have the Elko Bighorn Sheep indoctrination to occur just prior to the opening season date for the California and Rocky Mountain Bighorn hunt. We've had that for quite some time until last year to try to accommodate any Rocky Mountain Bighorn or California Bighorn tag holders who are, say, coming from out of state, didn't want to fly to Las Vegas or Reno in August, and then have to fly back for their hunt. They could come 2-3 days before the season and go to the indoctrination, which is 2 days. That August 30th would be 2 days before the opener of the Rocky and California Bighorn season, and get their camp set up. We have the same setup for deserts, where we have our very, very last indoctrination for deserts occurs 2 days before the opener for deserts. Again, trying to accommodate people traveling from out of state, so that they don't have to come a separate time or anything, and they can accommodate, come once, go to the indoctrination, set their camp up. And
Is that always in Vegas now?
The one
last one?
that's always prior to the desert season opener has always been in Las Vegas.
The catch-all, okay.
Just because, we used to have most of our tags down there, but now they're scattered everywhere. I don't know, maybe, I'm not going to suggest anything.
Okay.
But Elko seems to be, Elko Winnemucca somewhere up north, where all of our Rocky and California tags are. So we feel it's still good to try to accommodate those hunters just prior to the season opener.
Okay. Does anybody have any question about these indoctrination courses and times? If not, anybody from the public have any comments on them? Hearing none, and bring back the commission. What's your, I'm sorry.
Don't mean to slow you down, Chairman Lent. Paul Dixon, Clark County. One, just to say that we supported the changes here, but I had a question for the commission as a whole. Do all of you receive the recommendations that come from the cabs prior to this meeting, and do you have time to review and read those?
You guys don't meet in time to get them to us.
Some do. We
Mr.
read
Chairman?
some of them.
Mr. Chairman, a good example of that is, we got some of the Douglas and a couple others. When I went home last night, I pulled up my emails and they were on there, but they weren't there before that.
Well, I'm talking specifically Clark County, which came to you last week. Did you have time to read through those recommendations and understand them?
I got them right.
I did, yes.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to know. I just
Okay.
wanted for the record. Thank you. Signed, Tom McCall.
What's your pleasure on these indoctrination?
Move to accept the recommendation.
We got a
Second.
We got a motion and a second to improve the Bighorn Sheep Indoctrination course as presented by the department. Any question? All for the most say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. Mike, I'd also request, like, the PIW elk, like, we had just a county advisory board bring that up, and it was something that, you never brought, but maybe look into that. We're having more PIWs on this hunt, and maybe give us...
I threw up the data on the screen, and it's through this last year, so you can kind of see.
Yeah.
This was all the Heritage and PIW harvest, and these are the units that they were harvesting in. And we do have we've always had a run hunt pilot. There was one in the 131, but we had a rut hunt in Area 16. We had a rut hunt in Area 7, 071, 274. So far, they're distributing themselves, not necessarily in all of those rut hunts.
Are the PIWs impacting that, like he said?
Well, there was one harvest, and I think as I said earlier, we're definitely going to be watching, and we can be adaptive from year to year, and look for those. If we start seeing a lot of harvest, a hint of more than one tag in a particular unit. But as you stated in some of your numbers, when you look at a population of 100 bighorn versus
Right.
an elk herd or deer herd that's over 200, 300 even, then the impact is much less.
Right.
But we're watching it.
If there is one area where the PIWs are going into this hunt and the residents not, then we should definitely take a look at it.
You bet.
And
And we
yeah.
can make that specific unit or season recommendation on the PIW,
Right.
all except
That, because we can accept them out, and that's all the problem with the PIW's going to be able to do it. So we're going to look into that and see if we can solve the problem. And also, we don't want to stockpile sheep, but I think there's a huntable population on Pilot Peak.
and I almost forgot, we have a reciprocal agreement with the state of Utah. And so if anyone says that, oh, hey, we're coming over to Nevada to kill a ram, it is legal.
They got a season. Utah has a season on it.
Right.
And we don't.
Right.
Next year we will?
In 2011, we will. So to give you a little bit of a background, that reciprocal agreement was signed by both commissions, both states. The last tag we had there was 1997, and we had it, or the Nevada bighorn tag holder had that tag on Pilot. So that was the last season that was open, was 1997. So Utah, when we had enough rams, which we do now, Utah was next in line to get the tag. And our biologists feel that possibly even in 2011, things are going so well that we could probably have 2 tags and hopefully maintain 2 tags in there, so we could have in the same year a Nevada and a Utah tag.
And just so the sportsmen in the audience, we don't want all Utah people to shoot our rams up there, so we're going to get a season up there so we can take our share of them. And I appreciate you doing that. Commissioner Rain?
Thank you. Just to follow up with a request of the department, following one thing that we just passed, so that we don't have emails and hate mail and things. If the department would please issue electronic notification to all holders of Hunt 9251 bonus points, which is that non-resident Rocky Mountain, explaining to them that their bonus points will be preserved, because I could anticipate a series of emails, hey, what about my bonus points? But I don't see how, if you could please issue an email, something electronic, most inexpensive route possible. Huh?
We don't have email addresses on all those.
Well, those that do, those that you have, minimize it. If you do have email, use whatever methodology you can to communicate with those people so that they know that we're not just ripping them out of their bonus points. Request, it can't be an action, but thank you.
We'll look into it.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Sorry to keep you up here so long. Okay, now we're going to go